So Lenio, we're here at COP28 in the middle of the desert and in what some would describe as blistering heat, which I suppose leads us on to your role as UN Global Heat Officer. Now for some people they might not know exactly what that means or what it is that you do, so it'd probably be helpful if you first introduced what it is that you do.
So I work with UN Habitat, and through UN Habitat trying to raise the agenda of the need to build heat resilience. Heat, as you know, and as we all know, the last few years has been getting more and more intense. This summer we had the hottest day in July, the hottest ever temperatures of the ocean surfaces recorded, the hottest summer ever recorded for the Northern Hemisphere. September was the hottest month, and 2022 is now going to be the hottest year ever recorded. So we have been talking about global warming, but we haven't really been talking about extreme heat and how it affects people's livelihoods and lives and how it affects ecosystems. So we haven't been preparing for it. Cities are the ground zero because cities, the way we have built our cities, captures heat. The type of materials like the asphalt and the concrete and all of these things, plus the cars, create heat, and air conditioning creates more heat. So we have these, we call it the urban heat island, which talks about the difference between the center of a city where all these things are happening and the peri-urban kind of areas with more trees, which are often much, much cooler than the center. But basically, urban heat is a very big issue, which I think is going to be the main challenge for public health in the next few years.
There's a huge amount going on. I think, as an individual, we're all experiencing this firsthand. Now, I know we spoke earlier about that, how it's becoming much more visible, and we are experiencing it. Could you maybe tell us a bit more about some specific instances where that you've worked on in terms of strategies or particular projects that have been notable during your what is quite a short tenure as officer?
So, part of what is a mandate that has come from Guterres himself is to create early warning systems for all. And early warning systems for all are really important to make sure that the people that are at risk know that they are at risk and what to do to protect themselves. So especially with heat waves, we don't have, for example, categorizations of heat waves. We have categorization of hurricanes, of typhoons, of quakes, of whatever, but we don't have it for heat waves. Right. So this is an effort that we've been putting together to try to make sure that we start pushing forward to get categorizations of heat waves. So because people understand it, that when you have categories, they understand that, oh, we have risk that goes up. Sure. And so that's a very important issue. So early warning systems, starting with categorization of heat waves, and hopefully categorization that it's not just temperature, but it's temperature and health impacts of temperature, because people can understand even better as the risk rises. So this is one big kind of effort that we're doing. Another big effort is can we kind of start putting guidelines for cities for heat, like how should cities use nature, how should cities use water, how should cities start using new materials and new design concepts, which are not necessarily new, because often we should take them from the past, when we didn't have fossil fuels and we actually built very cleverly based on the specific temperatures that they were dealing with, right? Yeah. So how can we start kind of thinking about all these things and incorporate them in guidelines for cities that are more ready to deal with climate, the different extreme events that we're dealing with, because it's the same kind of solutions often for different extreme events, like the same or similar types of solutions or ways of thinking.
Global framework, I suppose, that you're trying to implement. Would that be right?
Yeah.
It must be quite difficult to do.
It is, because all of these things have to be rather high level, because all of the solutions are very local. Like the type of vulnerability that you find in Dhaka in Dhaka North, for example, is different from the kind of vulnerability that you find in Paris or that you find in Santiago de Chile, right? It's more or less the same, but you have to dig in and figure out who are your vulnerable populations, where are they, and how can I get to them, and how can they listen to me? So all of these questions you have to start with that, and then kind of come with the top kind of more standardized solutions and fit them and localize them so that they make sense on the ground. And this is a beautiful thing about UN Habitat, because it works in different cities with the local people from the bottom up as well as from the top down.
A lot of people know what's going on underneath, the skirts of UN Habitat. So it's great to have these conversations with you. But just to go back to your sort of grading system that you were talking about.
The categorization.
The categorization. Yes. It seems to me there's a lot of technology maybe involved in this. Is that something you're incorporating? Or are you working with outside organizations? Or
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have to work with scientists, and we created the specific, for example, with 6 different cities that we started working with for this specific type of heat health categorization. We started working with meteorologists, and we created an algorithm, and we have to run this algorithm specifically for each city, because as I said, it's different types of weather, it's different types of exposure, it's different types of vulnerability. Also when it happens, how it happens. Again, 36 degrees in London is very different than 36 degrees in Dubai, right? Mm-hmm. So it has a totally different impact. So each city creates its own algorithm. You need some strong and powerful computers to be kind of churning the data up to give you the prognosis, what do you call it? The data for what's going to happen in the kind of heat wave that you expect to come next week or in a couple of days. So it really kind of figures out what the risk of the city is and where you should be more careful. But as technology advances, and as we're getting more into this very popular term called the digital twin of cities, we kind of can get more levels of data that can work together and have the digital systems basically work solutions for us and run models which otherwise we wouldn't be able to work.
Could that be heat mapping, maybe?
For example,
thermo heat mapping
exactly. You can get thermal heat mapping, but together with thermal heat mapping, you can get dynamic systems, so you can get real-time data, or if you have sensors around the city, so you can see like how heat goes up and down during the day, and see how the population is moving, and where your population is, where is your shading, where are you lacking shading, where do people tend to congregate, for example, and you do not have areas that they can take shelter or cooling areas. So you can create more complex systems that you can ask if you can ask the right kind of questions for specific solutions that you want to do.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution, which I think has been the problem in the past, particularly with UN directives where, I suppose with technology like that, you can look at individual cities, the people that are living there, and apply a framework or categorization system that is specific to that region.
Exactly, exactly. And this we can already do. Yeah. The digital twins take much more time, and you have to collect a lot of data and to kind of teach the computer to the machine to learn how to kind of deal with it, and and it takes much longer time. And there are sometimes simpler solutions can be good enough. Like you can, for example, what cities do now, which is relatively cheap, is we get from satellite data a map of our city that you actually get the surface temperature, the land surface temperatures, which are usually much higher than the air temperatures, because, as we said, these materials that our cities are made of absorb heat, right? Yeah. So they actually store it. So when you take the surface, if you take like a heat gun and you look at surfaces, the type of surfaces that are made out of cement or asphalt, etc., can go really high up to 50 or 60 or 70 degrees even. But that doesn't necessarily correlate to the air temperature, which is what we feel in our bodies. and other types of temperatures, from the buildings radiating, from the sun, whether we're like in direct exposure to light, et cetera, et cetera. All these things have to do with our heat comfort in the city. So, however, what I'm trying to say is that even just having the land surface temperatures in a city and kind of figure out, take it for 5-6 years every summer and figure out what the average temperatures or mean temperatures are for each of your blocks, you can immediately then start figuring out which parts of your city need more initiatives, where do you need to put more nature-based solutions, much more invest in much more nature there, and many more trees and tree canopy because you're lacking them, because it's hotter, because you have older people there and younger kids and da-da-da-da. Then this other part, which whatever, it has like more whatever, et cetera, et cetera. So you can already start figuring out what to prioritize just with a simple land surface temperature heat map.
Sounds a lot more cost effective as
It
well
is.
to be able to
It is.
isolate
It's
specific
actually,
regions.
You're absolutely right.
So we've talked a lot about what you're doing now, where we are now, and the future. But what I really want to know is, how did you get here? What's the passion, the driving force behind this? Why heat?
I'm scared of heat. I feel that cities that start kind of boiling from the intense kind of light and sun on them become uninhabitable, and I'm worried about the future of cities. And I love cities. I love the dynamic aspects of them. I love to turn around and find like amazing natural spots and little parks and ecosystems and a beautiful tree in the middle of, you know, old buildings and new buildings and people. Like I think cities are amazing, and they are amazing opportunities, and they're also creating enormous problems in the world, like most of the CO2 emissions that are hitting our planet. So first of all, I'm really worried about cities and how they will survive and how people will still be dynamic and creative in the cities outdoors. And I'm also worried about the fact that there's a lot of people that are focusing mostly on mitigation, which we should, because that's the cause and that's what we should be doing. But there's already a lot of victims that at this moment they don't really have to be dying or suffering, and we can actually do a lot to save people and to help them, and at the same time make our cities more beautiful and make our lives kind of more delightful by, for example, bringing much more nature into the cities.
Yeah, it's those public spaces, the community feel.
Yes, exactly. It's like, how do you create more lively communities, more engaged communities, and public spaces that are more beautiful and greener and
habitable.
Habitable.
Yeah. I suppose, look, that's a great way to end. But look, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you today, and I'm so glad that we have you on our side. So we'll be continuing following you on this journey, and we'll be keeping up to date with everything you guys are doing at COP. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.